So hello and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Saskia and I am unemployed. But it is what it is. I've applied for a lot of jobs. I either get rejected with no reasoning or ignored. So I thought anyway I would do a video today on personal independence payment and how to apply for it. Yeah, so how to apply for personal independence payment, what you need to know about personal independence payment, and then my experience trying to claim it because it was rough. So a bit of background, I tried to claim in 2020. I got 0 points. I didn't take it any further because I was like, babe, I don't know what to do. Second time I tried to claim, June 2023, 0 points. 0 points mandatory reconsideration. Went to tribunal, got 19 points. So being given 0 points doesn't mean you're not eligible. People increase from, I think it's 30% will get an award at mandatory reconsideration, 70% get an award at tribunal, 50% get it at the first assessment. Obviously, like, of the people that go to the next stage. The background on what personal independence payment is. Personal independence payment is essentially a government benefit for individuals who are disabled and cannot do certain activities. It's not based on a diagnosis, it's based on the activities affected by a diagnosis. So there are lots of disorders where obviously some people aren't eligible at all with that disorder, some people are entirely eligible. Some people who are autistic won't be eligible for PIP, some people who are autistic will be eligible for all of the levels of PIP. So it's about activities, and there are two different sections of activities. So there is the daily living section and the mobility section. Daily living activities are preparing food, eating and drinking, managing medication or treatment, washing and bathing, using the toilet, dressing and undressing, reading, managing your money, communicating with others, and socialising with others. Engaging with others, I would say, is the last one. So mobility is then planning a route and following a route, so that kind of covers mental challenges. Then you have physically moving around of can you walk. So like a lot of people who have anxiety or agoraphobia might get the working out and following a route, so they would be claiming mobility, but that doesn't mean that they can't walk, if that makes sense. Like mobility isn't just can you walk, the second activity is kind of can you walk. The first activity is can you plan and follow a route safely. In order to be eligible for PIP, you need to score 8 points in daily living or 8 points in mobility. They are scored separately. Each one will have different criteria like A, B, C, D, E. And it will be like, oh, 1 point, 2 points, 4 points, 6 points, 8 points, 10 points. So if you score 8 points in daily living, you will get standard daily living. If you also score 8 points in mobility, you will have standard daily living and standard mobility. If you score 12 points, that is now enhanced. Anything above 12 doesn't make a difference to your award. So someone who scores 12 points in daily living will be getting the exact same money as someone who scores 20 points in daily living, if that makes sense. In terms of the descriptors, I'll probably put some on screen to show you what they're like. It's essentially about needing prompting, needing an aid, needing support from others. Basically, do you need help from other people or help from things to get stuff done, to get these activities completed. You also will need to meet a descriptor 50% of the time. I'll cover in steps how to apply, going all the way up to tribunal because I had to go as far to tribunal. Not everyone will. It's not an indicator of how sick you are. I posted a silly little TikTok about getting PIP. 3 types of comments. 1, congrats babe, because everyone was fucking struggling and everyone was like, yeah babe, it took me 12 months. Second, and it's just really hard for my mum who's literally got like no limbs to get PIP. Don't care, not my problem, that's a government problem. 3, middle-aged people going, oh, nice to see what my taxes are going to. I hate it when people claim things that they're eligible for. God forbid someone eligible for student loan claimed a student loan. That would really, really upset people. How to apply, step 1. Everyone will do step 1 if you want to apply. You can do a self-test first to see if you think you're eligible. You can do a bit of research. This is kind of the actual physical application process. There are 2 options for step 1. Ring the PIP number, which I'll put on screen, send a letter to the PIP address asking for the forms. First time I sent a letter, second time I rang. You will be on hold music for fucking forever. And then during the phone call, you will also need a lot of details. I recommend phoning, someone else can do it for you. Phone in, sit with a notebook with all your details, be doing something else and just kind of listening when they pick up the phone. So you need contact details like address, phone number, email, date of birth, national insurance number, bank details, the name of any health professionals that you want them to contact or that they could contact. Giving them the contact details does not mean they will contact them. Do not rely on them contacting your GP. Submit all the evidence you have, because if you rely on them contacting your GP and they don't, you just won't get points because they'll find no evidence that you have an illness because you've not provided evidence you have an illness. Basically, don't rely on them to do anything. Do it all yourself. And then also you need like details of any time you spent abroad. So after you do that, when I sent it as a letter, I then got a letter form. Then when I rung up, I got an email form that I filled in. So you probably, I think they're now doing the online forms. That is a lot easier than writing it because I can't hold a pen. So essentially, the PIP form will start out with like, what disabilities you have, how long have you had it. I've been autistic since I was born, but I was diagnosed last year. So I would just put diagnosed 2023, lifelong. And like mental health, I was like, well, diagnosed here, but had it since here. So I would say put, if you're diagnosed with something, put when you were diagnosed, but also how long you've had it for. Because like I have medical records going back years that show I have autistic traits, but I didn't have the label to put on it until last year. It will then essentially go through the activities, and it will basically say, question 1, do you have difficulty with preparing food? If you click no, you move on to the next question, you don't do anything. If you click yes, you get an open text box and you type things up. I would recommend, if you aren't sure if you have difficulty with it, click yes and type something up or type up whatever you think is relevant. Someone will then decide. If you tick no, it will get ignored. Like I said, I don't have any issues with managing toilet needs or budgeting, so therefore none of that was ever brought up. They won't be like, oh, but we think maybe you. At least not in my case, they didn't go, oh, we think maybe you might have difficulty with managing money, because I'd said I didn't. In order to go through each activity, in order to write a statement, look at the descriptors. First, check if you're actually eligible for any points, and then you want to use the STAR method. Basically, the way that they assess you is if you can do it safely, timely, in an acceptable manner, reliably. So, can you cook safely? Can you handle a knife safely? Can you cook acceptably? Can you do it in a quick, normal amount of time? Is it going to take forever? Could you do it reliably? Could you do it every day of the week? Could you do it for 3 meals a day? You then might just start with a general statement of, I really struggle with this because of X, Y, and Z. I think also giving examples is a good idea. So I was like, oh, well actually, I find holding a knife really painful because it hyperextends my fingers and I simply can't use knives anymore because of this. Oh, an example of an issue I had is that the other day I was trying to cut bread because I thought I'd be okay with it, and I sliced straight through my hand. This demonstrates I cannot do this activity safely. That kind of thing. Use the buzzwords of like, I can't do it safely. Don't lie, because that's fraud. I also do not recommend, there are people on TikTok who like have statements that you can use. I would say a PIP assessor is going to know if every assessment suddenly starts having the exact same statements in it, because you've copied it and it's not actually about you. That's why I think having an example is useful, because it is now actually about you. You've not just gone on TikTok and said, well, yes, I have this disorder and I don't know how to word it, so I'll do this. It's hard to word it. There is loads and loads of websites that can help you with things. I'll do a section on resources at the end, but like citizens' advice, give examples. For some things, I didn't know what an aid or an appliance was. So figuring out what they actually meant by an aid or appliance. What is prompting? There's a website called PIP Info. It basically defines all the terms and what they mean by like using an aid, or what they mean by being prompted. Essentially, you will do that for all of the activities that you feel you're eligible for points for. Then you get a month to fill in this form. Take your time. I stupidly did mine all in one day because I was like, I know everything. I definitely should have gone back to it. There are things I didn't include. It's like when I was filling out my autism assessment form, there are so many things that I just think are normal. Like, to me, I don't think that my routines and activities are abnormal, so I simply didn't include them until my flatmate Jade, this is your shout out in this video, came up to me and was like, "You've not mentioned this, like, what are you fucking on about?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." So then you submit evidence. This is objectively, I think, the most important thing, because you need to prove first that you've got what you say you have, secondly that it affects you, because the diagnosis, first and foremost, if you're saying that you've got a diagnosis, prove that you've got that diagnosis. You then want to prove that it affects you. So like, giving someone a list of names, a list of diagnoses that you have, isn't the most helpful thing for PIP. You might want a letter from a consultant that you've spoken to where they've written down that actually you can't climb stairs and you've been really struggling in the kitchen. A letter from a community mental health team that have said, actually, you're not getting dressed and you're not getting out of bed. You want the diagnosis, yes, but you want the letters about activities. You can pay your GP to get you to do that. You can go on the NHS app and screenshot things that you said in appointments. That's what I did. I submitted my autism diagnostic report, because obviously some things you just get an NHS diagnosis that just pops up on screen. Some things you get a report. My autism diagnosis report, to me, was the most obvious piece of evidence. Then I also had physiotherapy notes, so I had programs that I'd been referred to. I didn't have any like notes that said why I'd been referred, but I just said, well, here's what I've been referred to. I then did have a full physiotherapy assessment, which was also really useful, because obviously a GP kind of just goes, yeah, you're hypermobile, yeah, it kind of sucks. Whereas the physio was like, she literally can't bend over, babe, her knees are absolutely whack. She can't do shit. So yeah, examples of evidence, basically outpatient letters, inpatient letters, special educational needs plans, school plans, prescription lists, any your subject access request to your GP, do that before you start PIP. Any statements from professionals that support you, statements from you, statements from family. Like if you've said, I don't get out of bed without my partner prompting me, get your partner to write a statement that says, every day when they wake up, I have to prompt them and I have to do this and I support them. If I didn't, here's what would happen. You want to be as clear as possible. Don't just say, I use an aid and this is the aid, full stop. Why do you use the aid? What would happen if you didn't use the aid? Who introduced you to the aid? Is there an alternative? What happens if you don't use it? You have to really think about each question of just, it's not just, do I struggle with bathing? Yes, full stop, I do. I can't get in a bath. It would be, oh, well, I struggle because of this symptom. It affects me this frequently. It means I can't do this activity. If I tried to do this activity, here is what would happen. Annoyingly, as an autistic, a lot of kind of hypotheticals, especially like, I was then asked, oh, how would you feel if this happened? Would you be able to do it in this situation? I don't know, but basically, hypotheticals really zoom in into everything of, in this instance, would I be able to do it? If this changed, would I be able to do it? If I had an aid, would that actually be helpful? Why would it be helpful? Step 2 is then the assessment itself. So after you've submitted that, you'll get an email that says, babe, we've got it. I then got a text, I think, that just said, oh, a health professional's looking at your claim. And then I was like, oh, a health professional was scheduling an appointment. I got a letter for an appointment. So my assessment was 6 weeks after I submitted everything. I think it's 6 to 8 weeks that they're saying now, but everything is slower. You might not need an assessment if you have more than enough evidence and it very clearly proves that you're eligible, everyone agrees, the health professional says, yep, they're eligible, or if they think actually an assessment would be really unhelpful for you. If you can't speak, if you have such bad anxiety that it's actually going to be a real hindrance and we think we can give you enough points without talking, they can do that. You can get a face-to-face, telephone or video appointment. My first appointment was face-to-face, second appointment was video. I preferred video because face-to-face is just kind of shit. Your assessor will be a health professional. It will not necessarily be a health professional relevant to what you're claiming for. My first claim, which was entirely based on mental health, was assessed by a physiotherapist. She didn't know anything about mental health. Her assessing me, like, yes, she'll have a background knowledge on it, but does she know the ins and outs? No. My second assessor was a adult nurse who had no specialism in anything. was just a general adult nurse had worked in a general hospital. What's that going to help with autism? Does she understand autism, or will she just go, oh, but like if you wanted to interact with people, you could? Hint, she essentially just fucking said that. The assessor will introduce themselves, they'll say hi, you'll say hi. They'll kind of talk through the questions. They might talk through like, oh, a day in your life, what happens? Oh, what symptoms do you have? How often do these appear? They'll ask, do you have any hobbies? This isn't to like trick you, it's just an assessment question. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're asking you this to trip you up. They're not. If you've said like, actually I can't read, but then you said one of my hobbies is reading, you know, it begins questions. You can say, oh, one of my hobbies is reading, but I do it by listening to audiobooks. Like, don't lie, essentially, but also make sure that you're clear with what you're saying. If you say, oh, one of my hobbies is going on walks, but I can't walk very far and it takes me a really long time and I can only do it with a friend. Like, if you've said you've got difficulty with going on walks, don't then say that your hobby is going on walks, but not expand on that, if that makes sense. So you've had your assessment, you'll get a text, we've got your health report, but take a couple of days maybe. I would say once they've got that text, call them and request your health report. Whether you won't have a text yet that says you've got PIP or you haven't got PIP, call them and get your report, because it's useful to use for reviews if you have got PIP, or for the MR if you haven't got PIP. I would say request it anyway. It's not too much like mental stress to request it, and they don't have to write it specifically, like it's already written, they just post it to you. In terms of assessments, I think the recent notes say that about 50% of applicants get PIP at this stage, so I know a lot of people on TikTok will say, nobody gets PIP. They do. 50% of applicants who are eligible will get it at the first stage. So, you know, you could have the exact same case as someone else and have a different assessor and not get it. Like, it's kind of a luck of the draw, I would say. I've had people who gave very similar evidence to what I gave, didn't have an assessment, immediately enhanced. Like, I don't know. I think it's a bit iffy, but you can get PIP in the first time. 50% of people do. If you're successful, you get a letter, you get a text. You get a text that says, we have awarded you PIP. You get a letter that says, here's what we've given you points for, here is the rates that you will get, here is the date that you will get PIP for. So it will say the start date of your award, which is when you rang to get the form. The end date of your award might then be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I think for mental health problems they tend to do it for 2 years. I don't know what the guideline is. I have a 5-year review. I don't know how much that's helpful, because I guess I'm claiming for mental and physical health, so I don't know. If you get the letter that says you've got PIP, congrats, that might be the end of your journey. You might now dip for a year. If your letter says you've got PIP, actually you think you're eligible for more points, or you're eligible for mobility, I would say if you've already got enhanced in both of them, literally no point in telling them anything else. Like, you've got the most points. Getting more points won't get you more money. So if you've got standard and you think actually I was eligible to enhanced, or if you've not got any points and you think you're eligible for an award, or if you've got 6 points but you think you're eligible for those extra 2, submit a mandatory reconsideration. You go online, you can call the helpline and say, I'd like to submit an MR, and tell them verbally. I don't think this is a good idea. Verbal communication's real hard. By this point, you should have already asked for the assessment report. Then when you're submitting an MR, if you do it online, you can do it online, you fill out a form and you post that form, I think. Also, your assessment report might lie. You're not really supposed to call them lies. There might be things where the assessor has objectively lied, misinterpreted something you've said, made something up, or inferred something that they shouldn't have inferred because it's not true. Your MR is essentially saying why their assessment report is wrong. You're not saying, oh, it's because they're fucking stupid and they can't spell. Yeah, so your reasons for disagreeing aren't they can't spell, their report is rubbish. It's, oh, in the report they've said that I cook a meal every week. This is not true, actually, my partner does this. In the report they've said that I go to work. However, my work is actually at home. Some things that they've said literally have no bearing on any of the activities. For example, common one, you've got a job. Sometimes that is relevant if you said you don't leave the house but you actually leave the house 5 days a week for a job. Some of them, my main thing was you have a degree. You have, actually, main focuses of mine were things that had happened years ago. The GCSEs that I got 8 years ago, the driving test I passed 4 years ago, were the main disputers for everything. So I first wrote, this actually doesn't have any bearing on any descriptors. I don't understand why this has been used as evidence that I'm currently functioning when this was 4 years ago. This is incorrect. Like, I also explained the circumstances. So, well, yes, I've got GCSEs, but babe, I've only got 6. Yes, I passed my driving test, haven't driven since, and it was the most stressful period of my life. There might be things that are wrong. There might be things that are misinterpreted, and there might be things that are iffy. An MR, you basically just write a letter that says, actually, I don't agree with this. I believe that I was entitled to some points. Don't tell them the exact points, but maybe you say, I believe I was entitled to points in the washing and bathing section, as I cannot bathe without an aid. The reason I can't do this is here. Or like, basically, if you've got your assessment, basically when you submit the original claim, if you do it online, download the form and check what you said. It's not necessarily worth repeating everything you've said. For your MR, you might want to get more doctor's evidence. You might want to go and pay 30 quid and get them to write a specific letter that says, actually they can't do this. You might want a statement from families and friends. You might want to submit more evidence. You might want to just submit statements. I wrote a letter because that's what Google said to do. I got no points. I think 30% of people who do an MR are successful and get an award change. Essentially, if you go to MR, yes, there is a chance there is a change, but you may have to hold out hope for a tribunal. You then submit your MR. MR gets looked at by a second person. They review the whole thing. You then get a letter, you will not get a text, that says, we don't agree, we've given you 0 points, or we have given you 2 points here. You get, essentially, it's the same letter that you got from the first assessment. The only difference is, at least in my case, in the first letter they say, oh, they do a section that's like, why we made this decision. In the second letter, in the MR letter, the why we made this decision, not a single thing about it was personal. None of it was about me. It was just, oh, here is a reminder of the descriptors. Remember, to need an aid, you need to do this. I fucking know. I actually read the descriptors when I submitted everything, which is why I told you I used an aid. Like, I think MR for me was a waste of fucking time. This is then the next step of, if you're not happy, do absolutely appeal, because the tribunal is stressful, but because it takes so long, it's something that you can kind of get done and dip. Like, I submitted for my tribunal this time last year. I kind of submitted all my evidence. Well, you go online, you can go online. I went online and I made an account. Do this because it means that you can track your benefit, you can track your appeal, you can track everything. You can submit more evidence, you can submit more statements. I personally, as soon as I lodged an appeal, immediate fucking text. Have you sent more evidence? Can you send more evidence? Please, we need more evidence. Chill. Give me 5 seconds. Like, I needed a moment. I submitted it because I was like, okay, I know it's gonna be months. Like, I can't do anything to speed it up. I'll submit it. I submitted it before I did my masters. I've got a masters now. I submitted all my coursework by the time I had my assessment. I did a degree in the time it took me to get PIP. When you apply, you'll also select preferences for whether you want paper, face-to-face, or telephone video tribunal. A paper assessment has a much smaller success rate than the others. It will basically just be that they look at all of the evidence again and the tribunal make a decision. They do not talk to you. Telephone, pretty successful. Video, pretty successful. Face-to-face, most successful. You can say, no, I don't want face-to-face. Like, I originally put, I think I could do a face-to-face. As soon as I got my date, I was like, oh, I don't think I can do a face-to-face. The advised waiting time from the tribunal service is now 12 months. Some people will wait a lot longer. You can't speed it up, it sucks. There's nothing that you can do about that. It sucks. During this time, once you've submitted the tribunal appeal, you'll get something that says, oh, the tribunal have to respond. The DWP have to respond by X date. They don't always respond by X date, and also their response isn't really a response, I guess. It's just a letter that says, we object to this appeal. Oh, we remind you that you're not fucking disabled. It's basically no babe, you don't deserve any points. We remind you this, and they also send you every single piece of evidence you ever sent them. This is your tribunal bundle. Keep it safe, because in your tribunal they might go, well, actually, in page 146, fucking find it. You don't need to keep a copy of the evidence that you send them, because they will send it all back to you. Like, during the tribunal process, after I'd got that tribunal bundle, I still submitted more evidence. I'd literally post them something, they'd photocopy and just post it straight back. You can also submit evidence online if you have the online account. It doesn't fucking work half the time. However, the chat people on the tribunal website are really nice, and they gave me an email to send it all to, because I simply can't post things, it's not going to work for me. During the time of after you've submitted the appeal, you might get a phone call from the DWP with an offer. I think this is called a lapsed appeal, where they might ring you up and say, oh shit, we've taken a look. We're going to give you standard daily living. You might be holding out for enhanced. If they ring you with an offer, take it. Take it immediately, you won't get it again. Because what you can do is take that offer, have a moment and think about it, and then actually still appeal. But it means that during that time you'll be getting money. Because I had 0.0.0 points, so all the way up to my tribunal I wasn't getting anything. If I'd had an offer for one component or something, I would have taken it because I would have got money during that time, if that makes sense. Also, obviously, anytime you do an appeal, you are risking your reward because they look at the whole thing. However, I don't know what the stats are. Not many people, I think, lose their reward. Like, if you, in the assessment, get 6 points, or if in the assessment you get 8 points and you get daily living, and then at MR you stay with 8 points, you still have daily living, you will get daily living paid to you until you go to tribunal. At tribunal, if you have an award, they will warn you. They have to warn you by law. You are risking your award. It's not in a, we're definitely going to remove it kind of way, but you ask them to look at the whole decision again. That will include the points that you've got. Anytime you appeal, you're not asking them to look at, you can ask them to look at one specific section. Their job is to look at the whole thing. Actually, stats, 24% of appeals were lapsed. So 24% of people who appealed to a tribunal were given a phone call offer. And then 62% were awarded a tribunal. So tribunal success rates are kind of good. In terms of the actual tribunal itself, you'll be waiting, you won't get any updates that's like, oh, you're second in the queue. You just keep waiting. You then get a letter that says, hey babe, we've got a tribunal for you. If you have an online account, mine popped up on the online account way before I got a letter. And it will say, here's the date, here's the time, here's some advice. If you get a letter that's like, it's in person, you can send them a message and go, please, I want it online. They may oblige, they may not. Your tribunal can also be cancelled. I've never had that, but I know that some people have waited for years, got to tribunal, and then it's been cancelled a week before because the doctor can't make it, or it's been cancelled because of something else. On the day of the tribunal, if it's in person, you just go in person. If it's a phone call, you'll have a phone call before where they give you a dialing code, I think, or they'll give you a number and a dialing code and like a pin style thing. If it's a video call, on the day of the tribunal, you will get an email with a video link. You will then just click that video link when you're ready to go. So my tribunal was at like 11:30? I don't know when my tribunal was. I clicked on the link, they weren't ready, they kicked me out. So join at the time that your tribunal is meant to start. They might kick you out and then email you and go, hee, whoops, there's someone else in here. I then just kept getting calls from this dude. I was like, I can't pick up the phone, I'm so fucking stressed. And he then emailed me and was like, can you join in 20 minutes? So it might be set to start at a certain time, it might not. The tribunal will have 3 people in it, potentially 5. It will have 3 definites. You will have a judge, you will have a doctor, and you'll have a disability expert. You probably have a tribunal clerk, like admin, sat in the back typing. I don't know if this is in everyone's. You may have a DWP representative. They can ask questions they don't always turn up. I didn't have a DWP representative. So I had admin in the back, doctor, disability expert, judge. Everyone introduces themselves, judge is kind of running it, judge is in plain clothes, it's very chill. Like, on a video it was this, and then them on a camera that was like sat up above the table of 3 people zooming down. So like, it wasn't zoomed in or anything, that I couldn't really see them, and I was fine with that. You then, for me, the judge started, they asked me a couple of questions, I don't remember what it was. Then the doctor moved on, and the doctor had like 2 activities that they were asking about. I think they were asking about medication and treatment, and they were like, oh, well, you've got this diagnosis, but you don't actually have any treatment for this diagnosis. Why is that? And I was like, oh, here you go. A question that the judge asked was, because one of the things that they'd used against me in my assessment and MR was you're doing a master's, I was like, they were like, oh, well, why do you disagree that this should be used against you? And I was like, oh my god, a chance to fucking speak, because they will listen to you, okay? They will actually listen. And I said, oh, well, actually, if we look in the bundle appeal, page 100 is all of the special considerations and accommodations I get at university. I then explained those. Then we doctor did a couple of questions, maybe like 3. Disability expert will do most of the questioning. Your tribunal might not be long. Your tribunal might be that they've read all the evidence and they've already decided, fuck it, babe, you deserve an award. It could be that they read all the evidence and go, oh, we're just really not sure. The disability expert asked me the most questions, and it was the most, like, detailed, like, pressing. I didn't feel pressed. I didn't feel like, oh god, you're annoying me now. And I'm a bitch that gets annoyed by people. So I basically got lots of like sub questions of like, I got asked for like social interaction and stuff. They were like, oh, would you go to a party? And I was like, no. Like, I didn't barely even let her finish the question. I was like, no. And she's like, well, if your friends were going. And I was like, And then she's like, well, in this hypothetical. And I was like, oh, fuck it, not another hypothetical. A lot of hypotheticals. And I was like, I'm really sorry, I don't know the answer. You're allowed to not know the answer. You're allowed to ask them to repeat the question. You're also allowed to ask them, I don't really know what you're asking. Like, I don't really know what you mean. You can also ask for a break. They might offer you a break. Yeah. You cannot record your tribunal. It will be recorded. You cannot do that. That is illegal. But you can record your assessment, and I recommend recording your assessment. You can't use the recording of your assessment as evidence, but you can use a transcript if you type up the recording from your assessment. Once your tribunal is done, it, could be any amount of time. I think sometimes, I'm not 100% sure, they may tell you on the day, here you go baby, you've got PIP. They may not. You may go home and you wait for a letter. I didn't get told on the day, but because I'd submitted all of my appeal online, 4 or 5 hours later I went on my benefit website and there was a section called hearing outcome. That had, actually babe, here's your fucking PIP. So I knew then. I did not get that letter for like 3 fucking weeks. So the letter might take its time. I don't think they're allowed to tell you on the phone if they're giving you an award. Yeah, so basically use it online if you can, because you can immediately find out. Your appeal, if it's being successful, the DWP has 4 to 6 weeks to like appeal it and say no. I didn't get told that. I don't think a lot of people get that bit. I don't know what happens if that happens. However, once you've got your tribunal, if you're happy, if you're chill, you then wait 4 to 6 weeks to get back pay, because you will get paid what you were owed from the beginning of your claim. So I got 1 year of back pay. I got a call from the DWP, and then a text that says you've been awarded PIP, and then a letter that says here's your actual like award letter rather than the tribunal letter. Then I got my first payment. So it takes a bit of time for the back pay because they have to allow the DWP to say no. If you disagree with your tribunal response, you can ask for a statement of reasons. You can ask for a statement of reasons anyway. However, it will take a while because they have to personally write it. Like, it's not immediately written. And also, if you ask for a statement of reasons, I've read this somewhere, I'm not 100% sure, that the DWP will then read that, and then obviously if they've got a statement of reasons, it's probably easier for them to say, no, we disagree. You can only appeal a tribunal if there was an error in law. Get legal advice. This is where you get a lawyer. This is where you get help. because an error in law is hard to prove and it will get technical. If there's an error in law and you submit all of that, you can get a second tribunal essentially. They will scrap the first one and redo it. The statement of reasons from the tribunal will basically be like an assessment report from the original assessment. If you're happy with your award, don't bother, I would say. If you're not happy, go for it, because the issue is basically with PIP, they can only consider how you were at the time of application. So even though my tribunal was a year after I applied and I had deteriorated, in my tribunal they could only consider how I was that year before. So the issue is, you might spend 4 years, 3 years doing an appeal. By the time you come to tribunal, it's been years since you applied and your condition has deteriorated, but you can't include information about your condition from now. If your condition deteriorates significantly, you can submit a second claim whilst you're waiting. I don't know exactly what happens with the back pay. So like if you submit a claim, you're 1 year in and actually you think, well, I've deteriorated so much that the evidence from back then doesn't really, I won't get points, I don't think I'm eligible there, or I'm actually like much more eligible now. You can submit a second claim and they'll just restart the claim process, but your tribunal I think still waits. I don't 100% know how that works. That is how you do the application, evidence, all of that. I will quickly give my timeline and any extra advice. So basically I started my application in June 2023. End of June, I contacted them by the phone, took them ages for them to pick up, but they did eventually. I received the assessment form and completed it on the exact same day. I don't recommend doing this, take your time. August 7th, I then had an assessment. On August 16th, I got a decision made letter, 0 points. August 24th, they received my mandatory reconsideration. August 29th, they said no. October 10th, I lodged my appeal. Didn't hear from them again. I think I got my tribunal appeal response November 26th, close to my birthday. July 12th of 2024, months later, I got a date for my tribunal. August 21st, had my tribunal. September 4th, I had a phone call about back pay and the text that says you've been awarded PIP. September 11th, I got the back pay. October the 1st, I had my first payment. So, it was a long ass process. I didn't enjoy it, I don't recommend it, but I recommend it. Like, it will be stressful, but it is worth fighting for. I now have a 5-year award, which is somewhat annoying. I think I'd been annoyed if I got a 2-year award, because I would have spent a year fighting to get to tribunal, and then they start your review a year before your award ends. So you essentially don't, like, yes, you have an award, but you've basically got no time of non-stress. So I have a 5-year award. Because my appeal took a year, in 4 years my award ends. So in 3 years, I will get contacted about renewing it, reviewing it. I don't know exactly how that works, so I can't say anything about that. But yeah, in terms of like advice, websites, Citizens Advice, Turn to Us is okay, PIP Info is great. I don't recommend any of these like TikTok people. That's just my opinion. Reddit, the r/DWP help is incredible. They have people who are working for the DWP and will help you. I would say top info sources, the Reddit and PIP Info. PIP is a fucking process. It's really hard to get. It's really nice once you've got it, because you've been fighting so long for something that you are eligible for, were eligible for a year ago. And it's annoying if you think about the fact that if they'd just given me PIP at the beginning, I wouldn't have had to wait a year and I wouldn't have had to do this fucking stress. Only good thing about back pay, you get a massive lump sum payment, and as my little treat, I bought a few little treats. Okay, I can do what I want with my money. I've literally never bought a brand new phone. All of my phones have been second hand. All of my phones have been literally non-functioning. I bought a brand new, not even second hand, iPhone 15. She's an absolute stunner, and guess what, she works. Who knew that a battery life was meant to be good on a phone? My battery life used to last me like the walk to the gym and back. I lose like 3% in the same time that of my old phone I would have lost like 70%. Incredible. So the process sucks, but the back pay, delicious. Yeah, I don't really have any other advice. Basically, in terms of advice, get as much evidence as you can. Write statements, keep a diary, get letters from a doctor, get letters from a friend. You can get citizens' advice to help you do the appeal and do all of that. You can get charities to help you write your report and all of that. You can get your nurse or your doctor to help you fill out the forms. Get help doing the forms, I would say. Get help submitting evidence. Don't pay for any of those lawyers, I don't think. You can win the appeal on your own. I have disgusting anxiety. I literally get points for socialising with others. And yes, the appeal was so disgusting, my heart rate like fucking quadrupled. But it happened. You know, if I needed a break, I took a break. They knew I was going to be nervous. It was okay for me to be nervous. Yeah, get as much evidence as you can. Get help from as many people as you can to do it. Don't stress yourself or rush yourself. Like, take your time with appealing, take your time with writing things. Be patient. Harder said than done. I don't know if it's just me, I started to get a spidey sense tingle that I knew my tribunal was near. I don't know if it's just that I'd finished my masters and I was going fucking insane. But like June, July, I was getting a tingle and I was like, I can feel it in the air. And then my tribunal happened. Autism's fucking magical. I think that's all the advice I've got. I'll link literally everything I can find that's useful, because there are people who like templates for MR, templates for loads of things. I think they're really useful, but again, don't just leave it as a template. Fill in personal information about you. Give examples of you. Do not just go, I can't use a knife, so I use this, full stop. Why can't you use a knife? Why can't you use a knife? Not just why could someone who has your condition not use a knife? You. Like, lots of people have the same condition and are not all eligible for PIP. So specifically, you. Get as much evidence you can. Make it personal. Don't panic too hard. Easier said than done. Once it's over, the relief. She's beautiful. She's beautiful. Also, I don't listen to anyone that's like, oh, you're a benefit scrounger, you know. Okay. Do you want to be disabled? Do you want the 400 quid I get for being disabled, really? If you get the money, you get the disabilities. It's actually not that fun. I am a 22-year-old who can't climb a fucking flight of stairs, so... Do you really want that? Do you really want your hip popping out all the time? It's really fucking painful. Because you may have noticed I've moved positions like 15 times filming this video, because I can't fucking sit. I love chronic pain, it's really fun and quirky and healthy. Yeah, that's all I've got to say. If anyone has any questions, I'll answer them. I don't know how much help I'll be, because a lot of the time someone's like, if I have this disorder, can I apply? But like, I don't know, because it might not affect you in the same way. Do a PIP self-test. I'll put a link in the comments or in the descriptions, because yeah. I'm gonna stop rambling because this video is probably like 40 minutes long, but cheers. Get the money that you deserve, girlies.